بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه وبعد. Tonight, inshallah ta'ala, we're going to reflect on a story. Reflect to see what we can gain from this story in our lives, inshallah ta'ala. And this story happened at the time of the battle of Al-Qadisiyah, when Rustum, the leader of the Persian armies, requested from the leader of the Muslim armies, Sa'ad ibn Abi Waqqas radiallahu anh, to send some representatives so he could ask him a few questions about what they were doing, what their objectives were. So Sa'ad radiallahu anh, he chose one of the Sahaba only to go and represent Islam and the Muslims, and that was Rib'i ibn Amir radiallahu anh. And what happened is that Rustum had set up his tent in a way and beautified in a way to kind of distract Rib'i and the Sahaba from their objectives. So he put all of the nice Persian rugs, and he put all of the jewels to be seen, the rubies and the pearls and all these expensive jewels for him to see. And he had a crown on his head, and he was sitting on a golden bed, and he had the pillows and everything of silk around him. The dunya, like he's in Jannah and dunya. All of these things from the pleasures of the dunya. He beautified his tent with these things. As he's waiting for the representative of the Muslims to come, up comes Rib'i ibn Amir radiallahu anh on a mule. Not even a horse, a mule. He comes up in a rugged type horse, or a mule is a mix obviously, but because it's a short and rugged mule. He pulls up on that, his clothes, he has a thin thobe on with a wool top on, and he's not into the dunya at all. And he goes in to walk into the tent, and he has his sword on him, and he has his spear in his hand. So immediately the guards said, "Disarm, leave your arms here." And he said, "You're the ones who asked me to come. Either I go in like this with my weapon, or I go back. The choice is yours." Upon hearing this, Rustum, he said, "Let the Muslim come in like he wants to come in." As he starts to walk in, he walks in not being mutakabbir, somebody who's over proud or conceited, but somebody who's proud of what he carries in his heart and the message he's relaying, the message of Islam. And he also wants to send messages to Rustum and to the Persians as well. So one of the first things he did as walking in, he started to put down with his spear like this, like he would do maybe on the desert, but he did it upon the Persian rugs, destroying most of the rug before he reached where Rustum was. And then Rustum asked him, "What brought you here? Why do you guys come here? What do you want?" And he told him in a very precise message. He said that verily Allah has sent us لِنُخْرِجْ مَنْ يَشَاءَ اللَّهُ مِنْ عِبَادَةِ الْعِبَادِ إِلَىٰ عِبَادَةِ رَبِّ الْعِبَادِ. So we can take out who Allah pleases from the people who are worshipping other than Allah to worship Allah alone. And then he said, from the dhiq of this dunya, the narrowness and the tightness of this dunya, ila sa'atiha, to the vastness of the dunya and the abundance of the dunya. And then the third thing he said, radiallahu an, he said, وَمِن جُورِ الْأَدْيَانِ, and from the oppression of other religions to the adl, the justice of Islam. This is the message he came with. And if we reflect on this story and ask ourselves, what do we gain? Because it's important when we hear these stories that we don't just relay it as a historical fact, that before the battle of Al-Qudusiyya, this and this happened, and in the battle this happened, after battle this happened. What do you reflect? What do we gain from it? And there's many, many lessons and morals. Perhaps a lot of them have popped in your head now. But in general, the things that we need to reflect on and gain from in this story is two main categories. First of all, the stance of Rib'i ibn Amr radiallahu an, and then secondly, the message that he came with. What do we gain from these two? If you were to look at his stance, the stance that he had, from the time he pulled up to the tent, going in, standing firm, what do we gain from this? What do you think? What do we gain from his stance? He's steadfastness. What else? He's confident. Huh? Close to Allah. Excellent. What else? No care for dunya. Excellent. He despises what they have. He doesn't care. He has no care for it, of the dunya. He's not fearful of anybody. Very good. A lot of messages we gain from this. And from the beginning, we benefit from his tawadu', how humble he was. Look how he rode up. What was he driving? The latest model. And he was driving a mule, a rugged mule as it's described. And not even a high-class mule. He didn't care. He's coming up with this short little mule, and he's pulling up to this. They have all these beautiful horses and all these, he's pulling up. And look what he's wearing. Rugged clothes. Doesn't care. So what message did that send right away? Just looking at this guy. Is he attached to the dunya? Just from his appearance? Apparently not. He doesn't care about the dunya. So what does that mean? That's in the message on the battlefield. How is he going to be? Are they attached to the dunya? They don't care if they go home or not. Subhanallah. And that's why when you look in the history, they said about the Muslims, when some of the enemies saw the Muslims with the big bellies, they said, "You're not the ones that we fear. You're not the ones it was the skinny guys before." Because when the guys got too attached to the dunyas, that's when they got the big bellies. So it's a negative message. So this sends a message right away. And the tawadu, the humbleness, this is from the teachings of who? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. There was nobody ever more humble than Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And immediately you see the impact, you see the effect on the companions radiallahu anhum. And as we know from the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that nobody is humble for Allah except for Allah rafa'u. Allah will raise him. As Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Ma tawadda ahadun lillah illa rafa'u." Except Allah will raise him in status when he's humble for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then we gain from his stance, as you mentioned, showing the reality of this dunya, what it means to the Muslim. It doesn't mean anything. And who teaches us about the reality of this dunya? The Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and who else? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran. How many ayat talking about the reality of the dunya? La yaghrannukum. Don't let it fool you. Don't let it entice you. وَمَا الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا إِلَّا مَتَاعُ الْغُرُورِ. Allah shows us that it's amusement. لَعِبٌ وَلَهُ وَتَكَاثُرٌ. That it's amusement, it's fun and games, the dunya. But then he also tells us in several ayat, لَا يَغْرَنُّكُم. Don't let it. And he tells us, وَمَا الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا إِلَّا مَتَاعُ الْغُرُورِ. What is the life of the dunya except what? The pleasures of delusion, of illusion. This is the reality of the dunya, all throughout the Quran. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in his teachings, in his actions, he tells us how we should be in this dunya. كُن فِي الدُّنْيَا كَأَنَّكَ غَرِيبٌ أَوْ عَابِرُ السَّبِيلِ. Be in the dunya as if you are what? A traveler or someone who's just passing through. Just what you need to get from point A to point B. Focus on the reality. Is there any doubt that we're going to die? Any doubt? Everybody knows we're going to die. So it's just from point A to point B. Take what you need from the dunya to get to point B. When the Sahaba radiallahu anhum saw Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam sleeping on the hasir, like a little wooden mat, until it left marks on his side alayhi salatu wasalam from sleeping on it. And they're like, how can Rasulullah be in this situation? He's our leader, he's our imam, he's our role model, and he's sleeping on this, and he's leaving marks on his body alayhi salatu wasalam. What did he say? Mali walid dunya. What do I want from the dunya? And he gave the example to the Sahaba. He said, I'm just like the person who's traveling and goes under the tree to take a rest, and then he moves on. This is the reality of the dunya. The Sahaba understood the reality of the dunya. وَالْآخِرَةُ خَيْرٌ لِمَنِ اتَّقَى. The akhirah is better for the one who has taqwa, the one who fears Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the reality in the hereafter. So the hearts are attached to what? To the hereafter. It doesn't affect them. Even the ones who had the money from the Sahaba, the big businessmen, because they weren't monks and say, oh, astaghfirullah, stay in the masjid 24 hours a day and worship Allah until we get the Jannah. They were out making money, they were working. But yet were they affected by the dunya? Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, did the dunya affect him? Big businessman. Abdur Raheem ibn Auf, all of them. Look, Uthman radiallahu anhu, all of them who had money. But the dunya didn't affect them. They knew the real hadaf, the real goal, which is the hereafter. Also, when you look at his stance, we see the izzah, the honor that he has in his religion, the yaqeen, the certainty he has in Islam, no doubt. And he's honored to be the Muslim. You have all of this dunya, and I'm driving an old beat up Corella, huh? You're driving a Bentley, and I have a old Corella, huh? Corella's a nice car, don't worry if you have a Corella. I know a lot of the brothers from Asia, they love the Corellas, so don't be offended, huh? It's a nice car, I had one too, huh? So it doesn't matter. I'm driving whatever I'm driving. I'm getting from point A to point B. But he's honored to be a Muslim. Not like nowadays, where we are a little bit shy. People shy off the fact he's a Muslim. They want to change in their identity a little bit. Go undercover, not look too Islamic. But he was honored to be from the ummah of La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. And this is something that many of us are fooled, thinking that if we give up some things from Islam, that we're going to help Islam. We don't show that honor, that izzah nowadays. Where are the Muslims who show the izzah nowadays? Very little. Forgetting that where does the izzah come from? وَلِلَّهِ الْعِزَّةُ جَمِيعًا. That all of the izzah, all of the honor comes only from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Only from Allah. From nowhere else. Nowhere the Muslim ummah can gain honor except for from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And from following the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When we follow the deen of Allah, Allah gives us izzah. We leave the deen of Allah, Allah humiliates us. And that's why in the hadith of Rasulullah he mentioned several things from the affairs of the dunya and other affairs that people will leave. And in the end of the hadith he said alayhi salatu wasalam, that if we do this, Allah will put upon us dhul. Sallallahu alayhim dhulla. Allah will put upon them dhul, what is they will be humiliated. A humiliation will be put upon the ummah. And what did he say alayhi salatu wasalam? What is the way to raise it up? La yarfa'uhu hatta tarji'u ila dinikum. Allah will not raise this upon the ummah until they return to their deen. Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu an, he said, نحن قوم عزنا الله بالإسلام فلما ابتغينا العزة في غيره أذلنا الله. That we are a nation, Allah honored us with Islam. So we look for honor other than Islam, Allah will humiliate us. Look at the history of the Muslimin. When they had izzah, they had honor, they were the top. They were the cream of the crop. When they left acting upon Islam, Allah humiliated them. And look at the days we're living in right now. An ummah of 1.6 and 1.7 billion, la qimata lahum. They have no value. No izzah, no honor. Just humiliated around the world. Because we haven't returned to the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Rib'i and the Sahaba had this honor. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed them and blessed their actions. Even though they might not have had the money and the power of the other countries. But look how Islam spread and took over the world with the little bit they had. Radiallahu anhum. Also, when we look at his stance, we see that he fulfilled his duty as a Muslim, which is to give da'wah. Kuntum khayra ummatin ukhrij lin-nas. We're the best of ummahs, sent out to the people, doing what? Ta'muruna bil ma'ruf wa tanhawna 'anil munkar. When you are forbidding the good, forbidding the evil and calling to the good. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered us to be ummah of da'wah, calling to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is how the Sahaba were. How many of us are involved in da'wah today? Let's be honest. How many non-Muslims do we work with? How much da'wah have we given? How many Muslims do we work with? How much da'wah have we given to them? It's the ummah of da'wah. Look at the Sahaba. When he's giving da'wah, showing the beauty of Islam in his speech. And when you reflect, after you reflect on his stance, radiallahu anhu, you reflect on his message, the message he came with. Look at the beauty of the message. First of all, the message is what? Clear. Crystal clear. To the point. Wasn't beating around the bush. Nowadays you hear some speakers talking about Islam and they want to come with all of these fascinating things and make it like this and twist it like that and it twirls in the air and then it shines and it glitters. Like it's what do you call it? The celebration of the New Year's, you know. Oh, this is Islam, you know. And at the end of the day, the person talking to them has confused. So I still don't understand what Islam is. It's clear. Clear message. And it was built on what as well, the message? On knowledge. He knew what he was talking about. How many people they represent Islam and they know no idea what Islam is? How many people will give da'wah to Islam? They travel from country to country and wallahi they don't know what la ilaha illallah means. People who give da'wah, dedicate their lives for da'wah, and they have no idea what la ilaha illallah means. If you don't believe me, ask some of them. Say, what is la ilaha illallah? There's no creator, there's no provider, nothing greater than Allah. This type of, that's part of what it means. That's not the main core of what la ilaha illallah means. Not even close. That comes under it. But it's not what la ilaha illallah means. La ilaha illallah means La ma'buda bihaqqin Allah. There's no deity, no God worthy of worship, truly worthy of worship except Almighty Allah. That's the meaning. People talk about Islam nowadays and Muslims don't know what Islam is. What is Islam? Islam is peace, brother. Islam is this. And once again, twirling in the air and all of this, to try to beautify and change the meanings of Islam to make it more beautiful. It's very easy, very simple what Islam means. Al-istislam lillah. To submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the meaning of Islam. Ribi's message was crystal clear. The first thing the message was built on was what? What's the first thing in the first sentence? Built on Tawheed. The same message as all of the messengers. He said, we've come to take out as many people as we can from worshiping other than Allah to worshiping Allah. This is the first message. The first sentence. Because his message is all in 3 sentences. The core of the message. So here it is now. The first sentence, focusing on what? On Tawheed. How many Muslims today focus on Tawheed in their da'wah? Say, Tawheed, it separates the people. We have to come together. SubhanAllah. What was Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam calling to from the beginning of his da'wah until the end? Focus on the ikhwan. And people come nowadays and say, khalas, we're Muslims now. All of us know la ilaha illallah. Let's focus on the bigger picture. There's more important issues for the ummah. Look what's happening in Palestine. Is it a crisis what's happening in Palestine? Of course, nobody doubts that. Does that mean we don't focus on the core of Islam? Focus on the bigger picture, as they say? When Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam started his da'wah, what did he focus on? What was the first thing he called his people to? Ikhwan. What was the first thing? Tawheed, the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. La ilaha illallah. He came right away and said, say La ilaha illallah tuflihun, you'll be successful. Call them to Jannah through La ilaha illallah. Forbid them, warn them of the hellfire through La ilaha illallah. When he was on his deathbed, alayhi salatu wassalam, what were the two main things that he focused on his deathbed, alayhi salatu wassalam? He talked about the salat, excellent. And what else? Huh? And about the tawheed. As he was dying, alayhi salatu wassalam, he talked about the salat, the importance of the salat. And he talked about the tawheed. He told his companions, as he's on his deathbed, alayhi salatu wassalam, and you know when you're on your deathbed, you're going to give the most important wasiyah, most important advice. He said, لَعَنَ اللَّهُ الْيَهُودَ وَالنَّصَارَى, that Allah had cursed the Christians and Jews. Why? اتَّخَذُوا قُبُورَ أَنْبِيَائِهِمْ مَسَاجِدَ. They took the graves of their prophets as places of worship. And they worshipped other than Allah. They fell into shirk. They contradicted tawheed. Focusing here on the importance of tawheed and staying away from shirk, subhanAllah. And the salat itself is the implementation of what? فَصَلِّ لِرَبِّكَ وَانْحَرْ. The salat is for who? For Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's the implementation of tawheed. It's the tatbiq, the implementation of la ilaha illallah in action. Only for Allah we pray. قُلْ إِنَّ الصَّلَاةِ وَنُسُكِي وَمَحْيَايَ وَمَمَاتِي لِلَّهِ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. My prayers, my sacrifice, my life, my death are all for Allah. Implementation of tawheed. The first thing he focused on was the message of tawheed, of la ilaha illallah. Didn't come with something to make it nicer, package it up in a nice way so Rustam would accept it. This is what our message is. I'm not going to beat around the bush and come from back and this is what we're calling to you. What's the difference between Islam and other religions? Tawheed. The main difference. Christianity, Judaism, Hinduism, Buddhism, all the isms. What's the difference? The main difference? Tawheed. Is the main difference the scientific facts we have in the Qur'an? Maybe we have it and they don't. That's true. Maybe in their books. Allahu A'lam. But that's not the main difference is that we have scientific facts in our book that were proven 1400 years ago that you don't have. The main issue, the main difference between us and him is La ilaha illallah. The oneness of Allah. Only worship Allah, not joining partners with Him. The second part of his message showed us the reality of life and the real way to find true happiness in this life, to find peace of mind, to find ease inside. He said to take the people from the dhiq, the narrowness of this dunya, the tightness of this dunya, to what? To the abundance of the dunya. Because, and I saw in one of the translations in English where they said to the akhirah, even though in Arabic it didn't say that. Because the reality is, there is a Jannah in this dunya as well. People don't realize that. But some of the scholars said, like Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah, he said, whoever doesn't enter the dunya, the Jannah of this dunya, won't enter the Jannah of the hereafter. The Jannah of this dunya, being with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, really truly worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and finding the ladha, the pleasure in worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the halawa, the sweetness of iman. That's the Jannah of the dunya. And the ones who enter it, they find this sweetness, and that's why they're always looking for it and striving to build their iman and come stronger. He said to take the people out of the tightness to the abundance of the dunya. Allah showed us in the Quran several examples. The one who remembers Allah and doesn't remember Allah. And the hadith, what did Rasulullah say about the one who remembers Allah and the one who doesn't remember Allah? Like what? The dead and alive. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, the one who turns away from my dhikr, from my remembrance, وَمَنْ أَعْرَضَ عَنْ ذِكْرِي فَإِنَّ لَهُ مَعَيْشَةً ضَنْكَ, that he will live a miserable life. Look at the people's lives today. People are living in a living hell. Wallahi, people are struggling all around the world. Don't just say the West. The West is the most unhappy, obviously. As you might have seen some of the new tests, which showed you that Europe is the most unhappiest place in the world. And the Saudi was number 3. Huh? How about that? Huh? So alhamdulillah. But the most unhappy place in the world are in Europe. But even the Muslims in the Muslim countries are following their footsteps. People are unhappy now. Why? Because they turned away from the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah said in return, أَلَا بِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ تَطْمَئِنُّ الْقُلُوبِ, that verily through the remembrance of Allah the hearts find assurance. But nowadays, people say that we remember Allah, we make dhikr, we do the salat, but we're not finding that assurance. We're still unhappy, we're still empty inside. So what is the reason behind that? Here Allah is telling us that verily, through remembrance of Allah, the dhikr, hearts find assurance. But yet, our hearts are not finding assurance. Why? What's missing in the dhikr? Is it the dhikr itself is the problem? Because now some Muslims, they're more advanced than other Muslims. So they're going to new things, meditating and yoga and all of these type of things, to find peace and tranquility. Because they're not finding it through their things. So what's missing in our dhikr? First of all, I'll give you 3 keys. Then inshallah ta'ala, if you focus on them in the dhikr, it's going to change your dhikr. And it's going to help you benefit from your dhikr. And it's going to help you find assurance in your heart through the dhikr, inshallah. First of all, the best dhikr you can focus on is the dhikr that's found in the Qur'an and the Sunnah. The du'as you find in the Qur'an and the dhikr that you find in the teachings of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. People ask, what is the people come with some books sometimes with no origin, no asl, not from the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. There's no barakah in these books. Take from the dhikr of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam only. After that, one of the main obstacles that's coming between us and not benefiting is that Islam is not in our lives. Allah is not in our lives. We might go through the motions in the salat and doing the things, but we're not really holding firm to our Islam. So when you only act upon some of the aspects of Islam and you leave other aspects, you're good in some aspects and bad in other aspects. And what happens? The sins start to pile up. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala described it to us in the Quran. And the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us about it in the Sunnah. When Allah said, كَلَّا بَلْ رَانَ عَلَىٰ قُلُوبِهِمْ مَا كَانُوا يَكْسِبُونَ, that the ran is put up